that deals with the problems faced by millions of refugees who are now mobile in different parts of the world. Then there is World Food Program, which looks after the suffering or of people because of scarcity of food in different pockets of the world. United Nations International Drug Control Program, that is UNDCP, which pays attention to the menace of drugs in different parts of the world also. Then United Nations Human Settlement Program, which pays attention to the problems of settlement of because we know all over the world there are also millions of people who are shelterless, and that is also an outstanding problem in view of the international agencies also. So now, because we are living in an integrated world, a globalized world, interconnected world, so there are agencies, there are human beings, there are also, we can say, governments, which are very much worried for these humanitarian problems or humanitarian difficulties faced by people in different parts of the world. Then United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, which specifically pays attention to or looks after the problems faced by children in different parts of the world. Then the United Nations Population Fund, which is an endeavor to address the issue of population growth or population shrinkage. Now we come to know about the issue of, we can say, growth of population in different countries, and the outstanding example is our own country, which has now emerged as the largest populous country in the world. Besides that, there are some European countries which are now facing the problem of shrinking birth rate, and that is also a crisis. So here, these agencies of the UN, they suggest that the international body or the international organization, that is United Nations organization, is very careful in solving some of the outstanding problems which are being faced by the people all over the world. Now, the UN system believes in the pooling of resources. The resources can be pooled, that means collection of resources from different countries, because we know the UN system is formulated or constituted by the different member nations. There are more than 190 member states which are bona fide members of the UN system, and the UN collects funds from these member countries, which constitutes the corpus fund of the UN in order to run it officially as well as in different developmental activities undertaken in different parts of the world. So UN system is pulling its efforts to tackle complex problems that cut across organizational areas of expertise and defy the efforts of concerned country acting alone. So it has been observed that some of the problems are there which are faced by the people in different countries, and those problems are not effectively to be tackled by the individual or singular effort of those countries. So in that case, they need some international support. And the UN is the monitoring agency which organizes, which arranges such type of supports to the people in need. So that is done by the pooling of resources, pooling of efforts, and also you can say the resources. So UN also helps in the process of agenda setting for development. We know we have the knowledge and also the experience about the Millennium Development Goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, and these goals were framed by taking the problems of the entire global population. And these Millennium Development Goals or Sustainable Development Goals are nothing but the acute crisis or the very serious problems which are being confronted by the people in different parts of the world. So, how to effectively solve those problems? That was the main objective because, in individual capacity, a single nation state sometimes faces problem in order to tackle such problems quite successfully. May it be in terms of resources, may it be in trained manpower or skilled manpower, may it be also in some other respects. So, when a single nation state is unable to tackle such type of problems in its individual capacity, it is it is the duty of the international community to come forward in order to extend the helping hand to such people or to such countries which are in need. Now, so policy making, and in this case, how these international agencies they are uh, playing some instrumental role. Now it is our matter of discussion, subject matter of discussion, and first among them is the International Monetary Fund (IMF). So here, Article 1 of the Articles of Agreements set out the IMF's main responsibilities. So why and how the International Monetary Fund came up or originated. Now, these were the objectives to promote international monetary cooperation because we know throughout the world all the countries are not of the similar standing. Some are considered as developed countries, some are developing, and some are underdeveloped. And accordingly, the resources are also distributed unevenly among all these countries. So, predominantly, it is the developing and the underdeveloped countries who do not have adequate resources in order to undertake different developmental projects or developmental activities. In such case, they need the assistance from outside sources. And also, as it is the right now, this is a novel concept. Now, even it is considered that those who are in need or the people who are in need have also a right to expect some type of cooperation from those who are, uh, we can say, resourceful or who have those abilities. Similarly, at the same time, the outside world also has a sense of duty to come forward to help such type of people who are uh, in acute need of such type of we can say which emanate from different problems. So concept of right and also duty of the international community to come to the rescue of the sufferer, and the suffering country has also a right to get such type of assistance from the external sources. And this idea of duty and right is embedded in the ever popular, ever appreciated principle or theory of liberalism. So, the International Monetary Fund uh, it engages in promoting international monetary cooperation. As I mentioned, that those which are specifically developing or underdeveloped countries, they are more in need of monetary cooperation, monetary assistance than the developed countries. And this is arranged through the instrumentality of the International Monetary Fund. Next activity is facilitate the expansion and balanced growth of international trade. International trade is also another important requirement, and this helps countries in improving their economic prowess or economic stability, economic position, economic condition. So, every country needs, we can say, we can say sufficient amount of resources to be invested in different uh, or varieties of activities which are to be undertaken from time to time. And here, international trade is an area which can boost the economy of a state. If the international trade of a country is very robust, then obviously it can contribute to the economic health of the country. That is why nowadays, in the 21st century, increasing importance is given to the aspect of improving international trade and commerce. Then there is promotion of exchange stability. Exchange stability means at the international level, different currencies are being exchanged. Rupee against dollar, dollar against pound sterling against euro, euro against rupee. So there are varieties of national currencies which are available in different countries of the world, and there is need for a very successful and reliable exchange rate and also stability. Stability means there must not be rampant fluctuations in terms of the exchange of these different national currencies. Say, for example, there is need for exchange of Indian rupee vis-a-vis American dollar. So now we see if most of you must have been aware about what is known as the we can say exchange rate. Those who are very much familiar with reading newspapers or even we can say through your smartphone also you can immediately access what is the exchange rate of a particular currency against another. Say for example, convertibility of rupee vis-a-vis the American dollar. So here that exchange rate is determined on the basis of the international arrangement, international monetary administration. And this exchange rate must be stable one. If it is too much unstable, suppose now today one American dollar is giving 80 rupees or 85 rupees, and tomorrow it will be giving 90 rupees. A day after tomorrow it will be giving 70 rupees. So this is not a sign of stability. Stability means there should not be wild fluctuations in the exchange rate of different national currencies. So that is stability, exchange stability, and that is done through different international mechanisms, which is also one of the priority areas of the IMF. Similarly, it also assists in the establishment of a multilateral system of payments. Multilateral system of payments because there are so many member countries, donor countries, member countries which constitute the a corpus fund of the International Monetary Fund. Rich countries obviously contribute more than the poor countries. So they also dictate terms because of their, we can say, uh, bigger contribution to the corpus fund of the financial international financial agency, then make its resources available to member countries experiencing balance of payments difficulties. So this is also another important task which is very successfully and effectively discharged by the IMF, that is resources available to member countries experiencing balance of payments difficulties. Balance of payments difficulties, that means we know the countries of the world, they are establishing economic relations with each other, and that is done through the international payments system. So if a country is, we can say, uh, is making huge quantum of payments to another country and in return receiving very small amount of, we can say, returns from that country, then we can say country that country is disadvantaged in terms of balance of payments. Say, for example, suppose the relationship between America and China. So, in America and China, here we come to know from the media that China has always maintained a very favorable balance of payments situation vis-a-vis America. That means American imports are more from China than exports to China. Or in other words, you can say Chinese exports to America is much more than the Chinese imports from America. So what happens in this situation? America makes huge amount of payments to China, whereas the drain of resources or the payment that China is to make uh, against America or make to America is comparatively less. That means China is in a more advantageous position than America. So here the balance of payments is more in favor of China than in favor of America. That is known as balance of payments. Okay, and that is also taken care of by the International Monetary Fund. So let us now come to see how in policy making surveillance role is also performed by surveillance. Surveillance means to remain alert in order to judge what is going wrong where. If the system is going on smoothly, then it is okay, then it is beneficial to the world economy. If there is any fluctuation, serious fluctuation, then that is dangerous to the economy. So, surveillance is dialogue and policy advice that the IMF offers to its members. So, this is dialogue and policy advice to the members. The IMF conducts in-depth appraisals of each member country's economic situation on an annual basis. So, IMF as a global financial institution does this function quite seriously. So, every country, it keeps watch on every country's economic condition, economic outlook, and global financial stability report. So here the reports of the IMF are published twice each year in the World Economic Outlook and the Global Financial Stability Report, because these reports indicate how the economic condition in the country as a whole, in the globe as a whole, is being conducted. whether it is smoothly or in a risky manner. So, uh, the main objective is to take care of global financial stability. Global financial stability. That means there should not be too much of, we can say, advantageous situation, advantageous consequences for those who are rich and affluent, and disadvantages for those which are poor and resourceless. It should not be like that. Stability means every member, every member country should feel comfortable in doing business at the international level. So, the infrastructure, the IMF also calls for liberalization of labor laws. So here, the IMF pays attention to some of the developmental activities, and particularly in connection with our own country, we have seen that IMF pays attention to infrastructural development or infrastructure sector development in the country. The IMF also calls for liberalization of labor laws in India. Labor laws. So, what are the laws governing the labor administration or labor principles in the country? That is also monitored by the IMF. Besides that, there are also uh, activities like the IMF reiterated its suggestion to India to achieve the objective of cutting fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit here, that means what is your income and what is your expenditure. If the expenditure is more, then obviously you are heading towards a deficit position. So if there is proper balance between income and expenditure, then you are not going to face a deficit situation. The deficit means where there are, we can say, lack of resources in order to meet different uh, requirements or different demands from the different ministries or different departments or different activities that are to be undertaken within the country. The IMF also extends technical assistance because IMF possesses very well skilled and well trained, well equipped, knowledgeable manpower in order to help the member countries. Technical assistance, which includes training, helps to strengthen the capacity to design and implement effective policies. So, only by declaring policies, we cannot rest assured that it will bring the results. Policy monitoring and policy evaluation, they are also very important. So, starting from the time of formulation up to the time of implementation, or even we can say uh, um, policy uh, um, implementation, and also sometimes there is the need for some of the policies which go wrong, need sufficient correction. Those activities are also supervised by the IMF. So that is technical assistance. Financial assistance is also another role played by the IMF. It assists in matters of finance of the different countries. So the IMF works to reduce poverty independently because even poverty eradication happens to be one of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, because poverty is a global crisis, a global problem. It is not that only developing and underdeveloped countries they are facing poverty. There is also poverty to some extent in the developed countries as well. So, poverty is a global problem. And it is the duty of the global community to address these problems quite successfully, quite effectively, and quite sincerely. And these agencies or these institutions, global financial institutions, they have been constituted or they have been uh, designed only with this in view, this objective in view. The objective is how to reduce global poverty, whether it is in India or in Pakistan or in America or in Argentina, wherever it is. So then there is also your question of resources. The IMF's resources are contributed by its member countries. So where from the resources come? From the member countries. And it is quite clear, as I made it earlier, that the major donors are the developed countries. That is why they always dominate in the policy making business of these global financial institutions. So, whenever rules, regulations, principles are framed by these international agencies, it is obviously the rich and the developed countries which call the shots. That means as they contribute majorly to the resources of these international financial institutions, so they exercise a dominant say, a dominant influence in matters of policy formulation or policy implementation by these agencies or these organizations. So the major source of funds is through payment of quotas, which determine its financial and organizational relations with the institutions. The total amount of quotas determines the IMF's lending capacity. In addition to quotas, the IMF is authorized to supplement its resources by borrowing. That means these are the different mechanisms through which the funds are collected for being invested in different developmental activities in different parts of the world. Now, another global financial institution is also the World Bank. How World Bank also impacts policy making in different countries, that is also a subject matter of analysis here. And we know that there are a number of countries which are needing or which are requesting these institutions for financial assistance whenever they are facing some crisis. India has also been a beneficiary of the assistance of these international financial institutions like the World Bank or the IMF. Similarly, now we come to know about the dire economic crisis faced by Pakistan. Pakistan is also trying its best how to secure some uh, funds from these global financial institutions like the World Bank or the IMF. Many other countries are also doing the same. So the countries which find their resources to be very much inadequate in uh, response to their wants or in response to their requirements, they approach these agencies for financial assistance. So the World Bank is a specialized UN agency with 184 member countries. India has also joined the World Bank in 1944 and is one of its oldest members. India is one of the oldest members. So, uh, at present, World Bank is focused on achieving the MDGs. MDGs now have been revised into SDGs. So, Millennium Development Goals, they were targeted to be accomplished by 2015 and no. The SDGs, they were, uh, uh, yes, so MDGs, which define specific targets in terms of school enrollments, how more and more children will attend school enrollment, child mortality. These problems are associated with, we can say, poor countries because their health infrastructure is very inadequate to respond to such type of crisis. So child mortality, maternal health, health of the mother, disease control, and as disease control, for example, we have seen how the global community, under the guidance of the WHO, responded very urgently to the COVID-19 crisis just 2 to 3 years back. And access to drinking water, because drinking water is also a crisis which is faced by a number of countries. Uh, so these were the goals which were formulated in the or under the banner of the MDGs. Similarly, the World Bank is also partnering with India to reduce poverty. As far as its relationship with India is concerned, reduction of poverty is one of the goals and improve the living standards of the citizens. So this is a global goal. This is a global objective. How to improve the living standard of the people in different parts of the world. So to achieve the MDGs or Millennium Development Goals, the World Bank Group lays emphasis on investing in people and empowering communities. Investing in people, that means making proper investment so that the condition of the people can be improved. Say, for example, in healthcare sector. So that is investing in people and empowering communities. How the communities can be empowered. For example, women constitute a community. Minorities in different countries, they constitute a community. So improving the effectiveness of government and promoting private sector led growth. How the growth can also be harnessed by the involvement of the private sector. Private sector cannot also, uh, we can say, close their eyes to the different developmental goals which are being undertaken by any country from time to time. Now, uh, so World Bank also, it brought about an action plan from 2005 to 8 covering this period, and the World Bank Group's India Country Assistance Strategy, or CAS, Country Assistance Strategy, is closely aligned with the Government of India's poverty reduction strategy embodied in the 10th five-year plan. So this example shows how World Bank and India, they have been in close interaction with each other. So this country assistance strategy is one such strategy or one such activity which was mainly undertaken for the purpose of addressing poverty in the country or bringing down poverty in the country. We know India is still home to nearly about 30-35% of the people of its population who are, we can say, unable to earn $1, or that is your BPL. They are known as below poverty line. Okay, and this is determined nationally as well as internationally. So, reduction of poverty has been one of the major tasks or major responsibilities in which the national as well as national government as well as the international agencies are working in collaboration with each other. So here the strategy of the World Bank is it mainly focuses on helping to achieve development goals and targeting the bank's limited resources in the most effective manner. So resources are always limited, whether it is a developed country or any international financial institution or any, we can say, poor country. In every case, resources are always limited. And those limited resources, they have to be utilized in the most effective manner if we want to derive the maximum utility of such resources. So, the World Bank mainly focuses on helping to achieve development goals and targeting the bank's limited resources in the most effective manner. The World Bank strategy increasingly focuses on providing practical advice to policymakers on the major development challenges in India by sharing good practices and experiences from within the country and abroad. So, some countries which have made very successful attempts in reducing poverty, so such experiences they need to be as examples taken to need to be taken as examples wherever such models exist. For example, in case of Odisha's disaster management is considered as a model nationally as well as internationally. Similarly, wherever there are best practices, such best practices are uh, selected as models, and such models are attempted to be replicated in other countries or in other parts of the world wherever such type of problems appear or reappear. So, uh, then there is your financing Indian national programs. There is also mention about a US dollar 500 million bank credit to fund India's elementary education program. So, some time back, it was the World Bank which came forward with a funds assistance amounting to 500 million US dollars, and this was mainly for the purpose of uh, looking into or looking after the problems faced by elementary education program undertaken in the country. Elementary education program, because education is also considered as one of the interventions empowering interventions. That is what that means. If one is educated, then obviously he or she can be considered as empowered. And when one is empowered, he or she can do something in his or her capacity so as to make a turn around in the social, economic, or political condition of the person concerned. That is why education is vital, very vital, and efforts are being undertaken both at the national as well as the international level in order to improve literacy. And World Bank or IMF, these agencies, they are playing a very instrumental role in these respects. So WB or World Bank is contributing for the improvement of national and state health programs, urban development, and rural roads. Now, these World Bank and also similar other agencies or institutions, they are helping or taking care of these health programs, urban development, rural roads, etc. So, different activities for which funds are needed that are being undertaken by these agencies. Now, reforming Indian states, how a policy dialogue on fiscal and governance reforms is to be offered in partnership with other donors. For example, ADB or DFID donors. Donors mean those who provide funds for different uh, welfare activities, etc., to the 12 largest states in India, which contain 90% of the country's poor, regardless of the progress in the states concerned in the implementation of reforms. So this is just an example how different international donors like your ADB, Asian Development Bank, or DFID, Department for International Development. These agencies, or even your our WB, that is World Bank, or even IMF, they are playing some instrumental role in different developmental activities. The World Bank Group had 64 active projects with a net commitment of US 13 billion. So, if we want to take an example, then we can understand how these international financial institutions like the World Bank or the IMF, they have actually played very valuable role in different human development projects. And here is an example how the World Bank Group during by end of July 2005 had already invested $13 billion in different 64 active projects in different parts of the world. So this is just an example in order to convince us that these international agencies are actually playing very vital role in uh, addressing the question of or the issue of international development. Now, some analytical and advisory services also, some analysis and some advice rendered by the World Bank. These are the activities or these are the areas. India's water economy bracing for a turbulent future. So, under the World Bank's analytical and advisory services, following reports are to be released. That means India's water economy bracing for a turbulent future. So, what is actually the component or gamut of the potential source of income from these activities or these economic activities? One is your water economy. Similarly, there is also unlocking opportunities for forest dependent people, forest dwellers. We know the so-called scheduled tribe population who are predominantly forest dwellers. They also need some type of, we can say, assistance because they live a very pathetic, we can say, standard of living or pathetic condition of living. Then service delivery in India, economic impact of HIV/AIDS in India. So how? Because HIV or AIDS that is now considered as a global menace, global killer, and there must be proper vigilance in matters of arresting the menace of HIV and AIDS. Similarly, climate change. Change is a global crisis, and now almost all countries in the world they are pulling their resources together so as to address these climate crisis. Every country don't think that it is confined only to some limited countries or some limited regions of the world. The climate crisis is such that it is now engulfing the entire world. So, whether developed or developing or underdeveloped, all the countries are coming under the we can say, dangerous impact of this climate change. And that is why we see the leaders of the countries, the press, or the social civil society sector, civil society organizations, they are now coming together on a regular basis in order to take stock of the situation in almost all the countries of the world. And if at all any country has fallen back in taking appropriate mitigatory measures or some concrete measures in order to deal with the acute climate crisis situation, then there is, we can say, highlight of this issue so that the country concerned and also the others can do something in this matter so that the problem will be gradually solved. Then there is disability issue in India. This disability, labor and employment study, and also development policy review. Similarly, these are the areas in which the World Bank or World Bank's initiative are increasingly needed in order to deal with these crises. The UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization. The UNESCO is also playing some vital role. It supports India in the implementation of uh, what is known as your Education for All, EFA, or Education for All. Just a little while before, we were discussing how education is also a device for human empowerment. Human empowerment. So, maximum attention is now being given by national governments as well as international agencies in order to uh, impart literacy or in order to educate almost all people in the world. So, if they are properly educated, their awareness level will increase, and when people are aware, they will definitely be successful in doing something in changing not only their condition but also the condition of the country as a whole. So, similarly, সর্বশিক্ষা অভিযান, education for all, जोटाको ଆମେ କହୁଛେ education for all, that is also সর্বশিক্ষা অভিযান, which is quite popular in India. Similarly, United Nations Development Program (UNDP), it is also very actively influencing the policy making process in not only in India but also in many other countries of the world. So to achieve the MDGs, UNDP is working at the conceptual level with a wide range of partners. As this book is little bit, we can say, older, this study material which has been provided to you, it we can say relatively it is bit older. That is why there is only mention about the MDGs. Otherwise, since 2015, MDGs have been replaced by the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So, anyway, so to achieve the MDGs, UNDP is working at the conceptual level with a wide range of partners to advocate for policy and institutional changes. Policy changes, institutional changes. Because these are the changes which can bring about a sea change in what is known as the status of development. So, child labor elimination forms a major area of assistance under the Government of India UNDP. Child labor abolition or child labor eradication, because child labor is also a very serious problem in this part of the world and also in many other parts of the world as well. So, how child labor can be eradicated, that is also an international goal as well as a national objective or national goal. So, children out of work and into school. How this goal can be realized is the objective of different nation states as well as these international agencies. Children out of work and into school. So instead of we can say the spending the childhood in different hazardous activities or hazardous jobs, rather they should be redirected to the schools because their childhood is being we can say robbed off the uh, essence of life, getting education. So right from the childhood stage, if one is subject to we can say render labor or hard work in different activities only because the child or the child's family are poor, that is not only a national shame but also an international shame. That is why the national as well as the international agencies, national government together with the international agencies have taken up the issue of child labor as one of the serious humanitarian problems of the entire world. Similarly, there is also, we can say, uh, the UNESCO emphasizes on these activities, building strong democratic governance. Building strong democratic governance. Democratic governance is a political asset. Democratic governance is a political asset. Comparatively, it has been observed that any other system is less promising or less, we can say, effective in matters of, we can say, in matters of good governance as compared with or when compared with a democracy. That, in other words, we can say democratic governments or democratic systems are believed to be more suitable, more successful in implementing different developmental projects when compared with the other systems like authoritarian, communist, theocratic, monarchical. So there are varieties of political systems which are available in the world, and democracy has proved to be comparatively more successful than any other system. That is why democratic governance is also one of the, we can say, uh, chief goals, important goals in matters of this. Then poverty reduction, that is also generating equitable growth. Poverty reduction is also another important challenge, not only for the national government but also the international community. So works are being undertaken, being taken up at these levels in order to eradicate poverty from the world. Similarly, crisis prevention and supporting long-term recovery. Crisis prevention, so that there is no we can say no section of the population of the world should ever fall prey to the different crises visiting the surface of the world or surface of the earth from time to time. Energy and environment, protecting the planet, that is also a very demanding responsibility as far as the national as well as the international communities are concerned. So energy and environment, because energy need is continuously on the rise. Okay, India's population was merely 35 crores at the time of independence, but now it is more than 140 crores. So you imagine the quantum of energy needed and spent by 35 crores and the amount of energy needed by 144 crores of people. Can they be equal? Obviously, energy needs, for example, your lighting, or we can say transportation. In any aspect, we see that with the rise in population, obviously there will be uh, mm, persistent demand to increase everything, including energy production. So, energy, and also at the same time, we have to pay attention to the environment. If we are damaging the environment, then we are conducting a slow suicide. That is why we must be very careful in our activities while we are doing something for our own benefit, but we are closing our eyes to the environment. That is very dangerous. Similarly, promoting information and communications technology, ICT, information and communication technology, which is now the essential tool or the essential area which is linking the entire world. So, information and communication technology is now that area which has brought the entire world together. So, in that respect, every country has to uh, rise to the occasion so that there is no, we can say, backwardness in terms of access to ICT. Then there is your gender mainstreaming. That is also another important requirement which is being undertaken by the leadership of these international agencies. Gender mainstreaming, gender divide, gender justice, gender injustice. These are the things. What is gender injustice? For example, your the relative deprivation of the women as compared with men in matters of enjoyment of different resources, advantages, or opportunities that are available in the society or in the country. So, that is gender mainstreaming. That means those who are not up to the mark, they must be brought to the mainstream. Women do not constitute the section which has come to the mainstream as far as the gender benefits or gender justice, question of gender justice is concerned. Similarly, now the third gender, that is also another, we can say, emerging area in which attention also has to be paid for their welfare, for their benefit. You cannot close your eyes to the problems of the LGBTQI, etc., etc. Okay, so that is also another important requirement which is now being undertaken not only at the national level but also the international agencies. They are also coming forward to pay attention to such type of problems in different parts of the world. Then halting the spread of HIV/AIDS, we have already discussed about it, and this is also another important requirement which is undertaken by not only the development by the international development agencies or international agencies, but also at the national government level. So uh, now, so human development reports, they are brought about by the UNDP every year, and that human development report very effectively hints at or indicates the role how these agencies have been successful in fulfilling or in playing. And in that respect, we have seen that these international agencies, they have really played some vital role in matters of these developmental goals or developmental issues. Similarly, capacity development, capacity development or how the capacity of the members of the society can be augmented or can be increased, enhanced. That is also another important requirement in matters of this international development or the problems which are taking place in different parts of the world in different countries. So these are the you can say roles played by these international agencies, and very effectively they are also influencing the policy making in the different countries. Obviously, we see that these international agencies they are providing technical assistance, financial assistance, and many other assistance to the different national governments in order to tackle these crises. So, uh, now let us examine what are actually the constraints in public policy formulation. So, what are the constraints in public policy formulation? So, here we shall see that there are some major constraints. These major constraints are, for example, fact constraints, that is, lack of research input. So, fact constraint, that means they do not have enough of information or facts which can adequately address the problem suffered by the people. So, while we are going to implement certain policy, whether it is education policy or industrial policy or agricultural policy or defense policy, whatever it may be. So, while any country is going to formulate any policy, that policy must enjoy or should enjoy a smooth sailing. If that is not so, then obviously there must be a stock take. What are actually the problems which are hindering the process of policy goals, realization of policy goals? So these are known as the hindrances or constraints. So one such constraint is lack of research input. That means thorough research is probably not being undertaken in different crisis areas which are affecting mankind in different parts of the world. So whenever there is any crisis, say for example hunger, so on the issue of hunger, there must be thorough research in the sense where hunger is confined. What is actually the number of people who are facing hunger? What is actually the agricultural position of that country so that the country itself is not adequate to address these problems, etc. etc. So there must be thorough research which can actually help in the process of paying attention to such crisis in a detailed manner. That is one constraint. That means there is need for thorough research input, which can definitely help us in tackling the problem in a more successful manner. Then there is also knowledge constraints. Constraint. Knowledge is a prerequisite for rational policy making. So if we are not knowledgeable enough, we cannot frame rational policies. That is why there is need for what is known as efficient record keeping, computerized databases regarding the past precedents, a sound and efficient management information system, etc. etc. So these are the areas in which attention has to be paid so as to increase the knowledge about a particular crisis. If we do not know properly about the crisis, then obviously we cannot solve that crisis effectively. That is why there must be thorough knowledge about a crisis. Then timing of policies. So when the policy should be timed, that means suppose COVID management policy. Suppose we are focusing on a COVID management policy. So the here timing is very important. COVID uh, actually afflicted the population of the world in 2019-20, and if our policy will be 5 years later, then to what effect this policy is? ଆମର ଯଦି କୋଭିଡ 19 ଆସିଲା 19-20ରେ ଆମେ ଯଦି ପଲିସି ତିଆରି କରିବା 25ରେ ତାହେଲେ ଲାଭଟା କଣ? So that is known as timing of policies. Okay, so here uh, I am sorry to state only one learner is there, that is Govind Singh Negi. Govind Singh Negi, am I right? Am I audible, Govindji?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Okay. So, are you from Odisha or from outside Odisha?
I'm from outside, sir.
Okay,
Actually,
okay.
sir, I have given my exam for second MPA second year also, but I just got the
Yes.
link. That's why I'm attending. I am not sure whether I have to attend this class or not. I have already given the exams also.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay. So nice of you because you are the only learner who is there available to me. Rest others they have already left.
Understood, understood. But I'm not sure, sir, because I have given the exam. The result is also out. I have cleared the exam. But just I
Okay.
thought that this might be a basic criteria that we have to attend. That's why, sir. Just want to clarify, sir. Is it compulsory to attend the next classes from right onward now?
No, 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 there is nothing compulsory about this. And besides that, you also state that you have already appeared at the exam. So,
Yes, sir.
um, there is nothing compulsory about it. IGNOU is quite flexible,
Sir.
and so in that respect, you need not worry.
Okay,
Okay,
understood, understood, sir.
okay. So let us continue. Uh,
Sir, uh, then I request if
yes.
it is not required for me, then with your permission, sir, if I can leave this meeting, sir.
That permission is also beyond my capacity because I cannot say anything. It is
Sir,
up to your sweet. It is up to your sweet will. I
sir.
cannot also. I cannot compel you also to remain alert or remain online. So
Okay,
it is up
understood,
to
understood,
you.
sir. Means these
But
classes are
any
for those who are appearing for the exam, right, sir?
obviously,
Okay,
obviously,
so
those
as I
who,
have already cleared, sir, there is no compulsion for me to attend this class, sir.
mm, I also presume so. I also think
Okay.
so.
Understood, understood,
So,
sir. So thank of you, sir, and I'll take your leave now, sir, as I have other works to do. I just thought, and it will save your time also, sir, as others have already left.
yes, others have already. As I see from the screen,
Sir,
others have already left. But anyway, I will have to continue because as per the instruction of the IGNOU, I will have to engage the entire session up to 5, from 3 to 5.
understood, understood,
So,
sir.
okay.
Have a great day, sir, and I wish you a great year, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, let me proceed. Uh, so here, knowledge constraint, then there is, we can say, timing of policies. Uh, then there is your legal constraints as far as law is concerned. Sometimes laws are also not well explained or explicit. Sometimes some issues are not effectively addressed by the existing gamut of law. So there is need for, we can say, flexibility or amendment in the prevailing rules. Similarly, there is also environmental constraint. An environmental constraint here in developing countries, the political elite perform the task of political communication inadequately. So the environment is not suitable, and here generally there is a perception that the environment in educated, developed countries is more conducive than the environment available in the developing and underdeveloped countries. So, the environmental constraint, that means the environment doesn't allow proper functioning or proper implementation of the policies, because here, if we do not elicit, if we do not get the right amount of cooperation from the people or from the society, then no policy can be successful. That is why here there is a need for, we can say, the environment to be suitably organized or suitably conditioned in order to fructify, or in order to the policies to be fruitful. Similarly, there is also the craft of policy or role of the bureaucracy. And we know in matters of policy formulation, the bureaucracy is one of the most important agencies of the state, and it is directly responsible for the implementation of the policies. So, policy analysis, implementation, all these activities they have to be very successfully undertaken if the bureaucracy is well oriented in that direction. Now, specific areas for deliberation for the purpose of policy analysis could be like this. That is, identification of stakeholders and allowing voice to target population to make the process broad based. So, identification of stakeholders, that means those who are going to either be impacted or they are going to impact in matters of any given policy or any particular policy, and allowing voice to target population to make the process broad based. Who are the target population? Say, for example, if we are thinking about what is known as this promotion of literacy or educational attainment of the people. So, obviously, who are the target population? Those who are illiterate. Similarly, in case of poverty eradication, who are the target group? Those who are poor. So, poverty eradication means we have to pinpoint the focus on those who are poor as per the decided yardstick. What has been the yardstick on the basis of which poverty has been determined or poverty has been ascertained, and accordingly, what type or what actions are needed in order to eradicate poverty. Similarly, institutionalizing civil society partnership. Institutionalizing civil society partnership. Nowadays, civil society or civil society organizations, they are playing a very vital role in matters of translating different policies into action. So, participation of the civil society organization is very important in matters of policy implementation, and they need to be involved very actively. So, especially of the impacted group, that is beneficiaries or otherwise, in the deliberations preceding formulation of a policy. So, before the formulation of policy, both the assistance of these civil society organizations, and also after the policy has been implemented, at that stage also the involvement of the civil society is very important. Then delimiting the area of administrative direction in policies formulated. Delimiting the arena of administrative discretion in policies formulated. So which are the policies that have been formulated, and the need for, you can say, delimiting or changing in the limit of the liberty enjoyed by the administrative agencies in matters of its discretion. Then there is also need for good communication, that is vertical and horizontal. Communication needs to be from top to bottom and also across. So that is horizontal as well as vertical communication, so that every stakeholder or every agency can be properly informed about these issues to disseminate the intent of the policy and avoid implementation hurdles, distortions. So sometimes hurdles may appear, obstructions or obstacles may appear while fulfilling or while implementing different policies. So in that case, how those hurdles or how those obstacles can be cleared, because unless we clear those obstacles, then policy implementation or success of policy can be compromised. So success of a policy very well depends on the removal of different obstacles coming in the way. Then there is also the built-in flexibility provisions where needed to provide for successful implementation. Built-in flexibility. That means instead of being very rigid, rather there should be sufficient amount of flexibility in the implementation of policies, different policies for the betterment of the affected population or the target groups. So here, then there is also some procedural stipulation. That means in matters of procedure, there should be some, we can say, regularity or some sincerity. Unless our procedures are well explained, well elaborated, then achievement of the goal may not be possible. That is why procedural stipulation requires that there should be every details well explained in matters of this policy implementation. What is actually the step-by-step process in the implementation of the policies, that is quite important to be ascertained so that the realization of the goal will be a possibility. Then, regarding the role of the civil society, we have discussed about it a little, and here people's participation and interest articulation. So, civil society helps in these processes. One is the people's participation is facilitated by these civil society organizations. So, as they understand, so So, role of the civil society is another important requirement in matters of policy implementation. And here, people's participation and interest articulation. So, these are the two areas in which civil society organizations are going to help. One is people's participation. Sometimes people, because of their, we can say, apathetic attitude, they do not participate in policy implementation or in the policy implementation process. So, in that case, it is the civil society organizations which motivate the people, educate the people, and also make the people aware through their different advocacy campaigns so that people can be motivated to participate in these type of developmental interventions. And also interest articulation. Here, what is actually the interest of the people? How people think about the problem? How or what do they think that their problem can be solved in a particular manner? So these are the things which need to be taken quite seriously, and such type of interests must be articulated quite carefully, because when we are articulating an interest properly, then we will be in a position, we will be in a condition to solve the crisis, solve the problem effectively. Unless we know the interest of people properly, we cannot be in a position to solve their problems. Similarly, there is also public as interest group, that is pluralism, public as consumer, that is public choice, and public as representative voter, that is legislative. So these are the we can say rules in between the citizen government interface that determines or that plays a vital role in matters of public policy implementation, and this is the idea given by Frederickson. So Frederickson believed that the involvement of the public as interest group, because this is the need of pluralism, and also public as consumer, that is choice. That means if the people are going to benefit out of a scheme, out of a policy, then obviously they are an interest group. So how their suffering or how their problem is going to be effectively addressed, implemented in a given type of situation or at the time of a given crisis. Similarly, public as consumer, that is public choice, how the people are going to choose their manner of consumption. So if it is issue of literacy, how the people are going to take advantage of it. If it is the issue of poverty eradication, how the people are going to respond to such type of or the type of different types of administrative or developmental interventions. That is choice. People will choose which activity is suitable to them. That is public as consumer or public choice. And similarly, public as a representative voter, that is client and citizen. Whether people are client or they are citizen, here that is also an important requirement in this case. So now there are also your value constraints, that is the welfare predicament. Welfare predicament suggests that whether there should be more and more interventions for coming to the aid of the people or to let the people develop a culture of self, uh, can say, whether they should come forward to take up the problem by themselves, because it has been observed from numerous cases that welfare interventions have sometimes been responsible for making the people indolent, idle, unproductive, and at the same time, it also creates a mentality of dependence or pauper mentality among the people or among the groups. So this is very serious a side effect as far as the concept of welfare, people's welfare is concerned. People's welfare must be there, but the welfare intervention should not be stretched to such an extent that it will make the people indolent or it will create a pauper mentality among them. It is quite dangerous. So, this is something I think, as there are no listeners, though no learners, I think it would be proper to wind up here, because the speaker is the lone participant here in this interactive process. And as there is nobody from the RC Bhubaneswar office, uh, I am at a disadvantage to decide as to what to be done, what is to be done. I think it would be proper to wind up the business here.